15 years, blowing the doors off the competition. Podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
Connecting to server. Connection confirmed. Connecting to website. Connection confirmed. Adjusting lights to preset level. Adjusting sound. Adjusting volume. Recording.
Real movies for real people. T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown. Subject Cinema 2021.
So we're late, you know, by 2 weeks. We were supposed to be back 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Real life.
So sorry. It's been kind of nuts around here.
Yep.
Welcome to Subject Cinema. I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
We are trying to get back into the regular swing of things as we start to wind down a little bit on the pandemic, with more theaters opening, more movies coming out and stuff.
More theaters opening and more theaters closing.
Not so much. I
Irony.
mean, as the vaccine travels, as the vaccine turns, we'll have more places opening up and stuff. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, get vaccinated. We are both fully vaccinated now.
We are.
Yay.
We are.
No ill effects.
Yeah, we're very lucky. Other than me having that my first vaccination.
We were both really tired the next day, and that was about it.
By that night, actually, I was like, I'm going to bed, clunk.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like...
in the middle of a pay-per-view. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was like, sorry. And then I was... the next day, I was just kind of like, I want to go to take a nap, clunk. And that was like... That was it. By Monday, by like later on in the week, I was like, "Hey, I feel great."
I had muscle pain for a week, but I didn't have it was only right where I got the second shot. We had the Moderna, so you know it works for us. Hopefully, whatever you take will work for you.
It was mostly just being tired. Thankfully, it wasn't like serious things, but definitely go get vaccinated.
Yeah. So we're back, and we're back with the first big movie to hit theaters since we got vaccinated. And we're going to talk a little bit about the earlier film, a little bit of everything. In Subject Cinema number 652, King Kong meets Godzilla, or Godzilla meets Kong, or versus Kong, Godzilla versus Kong, or Frankenstoke meets Duckula, or Duckula meets Frankenstoke, or, you gonna stop me?
No, keep going. I want to see what happens next.
Frankenstoke and Duckula meet Danger Mouse and Penfold, or...
Oh, shut up. Penfold. Shush.
Oh, heck. In any case, we had fun watching this. It was a lot of fun, and we want to give a little bit of info on both films. Because this is officially the end of the Universal Legendary Monsterverse, but I don't think it's going to be, because the money has been good, the reaction's been good, the critical assessment was pretty good.
Yes, it was.
Although some of the critics have now come back and said, yeah, it was fun, but it really was not anything but fluff. So,
well, I'm sorry, but if you want to go watch a movie about your carbon footprint and if you
isn't Godzilla kind of a climate warrior, out there?
No.
Natural. Oh, just checking.
Godzilla is the guardian of the planet.
Okay.
Notice I said the planet and not humanity.
Well, no, by rote, he is also a guardian of humanity, but he cares more about the planet. He could care less about the people. He wants to save the planet.
Well, prairie chickens live on the planet, too. Would you consider Godzilla the guardian of the prairie chicken? I mean,
Anyway.
Naked mole rats live on the planet. I really wouldn't consider him. He is Godzilla, defender of the naked mole rat. That's not the way it works.
Yes, don't piss her off about Godzilla, okay?
Don't poke the G fan.
So anyway, the Universal Monsterverse had 4 films.
Yep.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, and now Godzilla vs. Kong. Mm-hmm. The second 2 were flip-flopped.
You flipped him around, but I wasn't going to be the one to correct you.
No, that's okay. It's been an interesting ride through all of them. But of course, the current group of films has its roots in the original Shohei.
Well, you're going all the way back to that.
Well, those are all part of the first 16 movies. Are all part of that era.
Yes,
the Shohei era.
Showa, yeah.
And Godzilla, King Kong vs. Godzilla was the 4th film in the original franchise sequence. It came out in 1962.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a lot to uncover with King Kong.
I won't be talking a lot during this because she is the Godzilla and King Kong vs. Godzilla maven in this household. So
I don't consider myself an
I will
expert,
make smart aleck pithy comments throughout. Anyway.
The thing is, what is really interesting with King Kong vs. Godzilla is what originally was supposed to happen with this film. Which is the fact that originally, this was not supposed to be King Kong versus Godzilla. This was originally supposed to be King Kong versus Frankenstein. Now, I know some people just went, what the heck are you talking about? And how the hell would a film about King Kong versus Frankenstein ever even happen? Because it seems like it would be an incredibly short film.
How the hell would King Kong versus Frankenstein ever happen? It seems like it would be a hell of a short film.
I'm so glad you asked.
See, I told you. Just here for pithy comments.
To understand that, you have to go back to Willis H. O'Brien, who was one of the gentlemen who worked on the original King Kong from the 30s. He was one of the people that pioneered stop motion. Very intelligent guy. I believe Ray Harryhausen was one of his proteges. I'm not entirely certain of that.
I do seem to remember that in this lore, yeah.
And Mr. O'Brien had come up with an idea for a film where Kong and the Frankenstein monster would both be captured. They would both be brought to, I believe it was going to be San Francisco. I'm pretty sure it was somewhere on the West Coast because goodness knows, Kong did enough problems on the East Coast when he was kidnapped from his island home. We get that in the new movie, too. Anyway, this, however, is not the Frankenstein monster that you're used to if you're a fan of the Universal iteration of the Frankenstein monster, the whole Boris Karloff flat top, bolts in the neck, or that. Or even the version that Hammer did in Curse of Frankenstein with Christopher Lee, which is, in my opinion, an even scarier looking monster than the Universal look. No, this version of the Frankenstein monster was actually large enough that it was on a physical par with King Kong, as in height-wise and weight-wise and stuff like that. And it was a being that was put together from the body parts of animals, like bears and bulls, and it was going to be this big patchwork monstrosity. And they were going to both be displayed as, people are wont to do when they see things in nature that are different. They want to put them in a cage so people can gawk at them.
That sounds utterly abominable.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
No, I mean the concept.
I think it would have looked, considering O'Brien's work, I'm sure it would have looked really amazing and probably scary as heck. Needless to say, stuff would have broken down, and the Frankenstein monster and Kong were going to do battle and wreck the crap out of whatever city on the West Coast because collateral damage. The problem is that Mr. O'Brien gave this information, gave the outline of the plot of this film to a producer named John Beck. And Mr. Beck scarpered off to Tokyo, or I should say to Japan, and gave this whole idea to these the studio, Toho Studios. He did all of this without any permission or knowledge from Willis O'Brien, so I think that was pretty underhanded. And Toho said, oh yeah, we'll definitely do this film. This sounds great. However, we want to change something. Instead of using the Frankenstein monster, we want to use the monster we've already established, and that would be this guy over here in the corner, Godzilla, who had already been featured in, as TC mentioned, 3 other films previously, Gojira, or Godzilla King of the Monsters, which did boku box office in Japan and in the United States. Godzilla Raids Again, which was released in this country as Gigantus the Fire Monster, don't ask. And and then Godzilla versus, actually no, was this the 3rd film? I think we're screwing that up.
I thought it was 4th, but it might be 3rd. Let me see. Sorry, you're right. It is the 3rd film.
This is the third.
That was my mistake. I'm sorry.
This is the 3rd film, and Godzilla versus the Thing was the next film after that.
Right.
So this film, the thing about Kong versus Godzilla is that if you watch the Japanese version, if you're lucky enough to find it, which is really not all that hard, or if you watch the American version, there are big differences. There are some things that are the same. You've got Godzilla, you've got King Kong, and you've got a whole bunch of buildings getting trashed.
Just a really quick complaint here. Mm-hmm. For her Christmas present or birthday present last year, I got the Criterion Godzilla collection for her.
Because my fella loves me.
It says that both the American and the Japanese cuts of this film are on that collection. We went all the way through it. We could not find the Japanese cut of this movie.
Yeah. That might just be us not finding it.
It might be. So if it is there, if you guys, I know Eric has this thing. If you guys have seen the Godzilla collection and you know that the Japanese version is on that set, let me know what disc it's on, because it wasn't on the ones we looked at.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see that one. I had to suffer through this one again before we saw Godzilla vs. Kong.
I admit, out of a lot of...
She loves this film.
Yes, I know. A lot of Godzilla fans don't like this film. And I understand that.
It's better than King Kong Escapes.
Yeah.
Which is other movie that they did at Toho with King Kong.
Yep.
Featuring the ubiquitous Doctor Who. Not that Doctor Who.
No, not that Doctor Who.
Although I make jokes about it every time we talk about it. It's actually a fun movie in its own right, but it's nowhere near as well thought out as this one was.
Although
this at least had some thought behind it.
You have to grant the costume in King Kong Escapes mostly looks better than the costume in Kong vs. Godzilla, I think.
Yeah, because they'd had 6 years to develop it.
Yeah.
Or 5 years. It was 67 when that one came out, I think. So
the biggest difference, they cut out a lot of plot points in the American release because they probably figured that American audiences wouldn't care about some of the stuff that the Japanese audience would be familiar with. Mm-hmm. Because the whole plot of the film involves a company, the pharmaceutical company, that they sponsor a television show and their ratings are sinking. And the executive for the company, Mr. Taco, that's T-A-K-O, by the way, not T-A-C-O, in case you're wondering.
And apparently it literally means octopus.
Octopus. Taco means octopus in Japanese, yep. Which I guess would have probably really cracked up people in Japan. I don't know. He comes up with the idea that what their show needs to get a lift is for their company to find a monster. For some reason, I don't know why. Because they are a pharmaceutical company, they're looking for new drugs to market and things like that. And a scientist had found these berries on an island called Faroe Island, not Skull Island. These berries called Soma, I'm not even going to touch on that, that are apparently non-addictive and have a narcotic effect and all this, wonder drug kind of stuff. The thing is, the people that live on Faroe Island are all like, well, we're only going to give you some of these because we need the rest of them. And the reason they need the rest of them is because they use these berries to make a juice to placate their island god. And of course, the people back in Japan, who are all, modern folks, are all like, oh, those primitives. And there's a couple of people sent off from the pharmaceutical.
Let's explain that right there when they do arrive, that this is very non-PC at this point in time, because if you think Americans in blackface is scary, Japanese in the equivalent is even scarier.
Yeah. So some of the men from the company are sent to go to this island to find out about the monster, and as TC mentioned, the whole natives done in brownface is really, really cringy. It's wow. They do find out though that there is a creature on the island that is worshipped by these people as a god, and I can kind of get where they're coming from. If you live on a primitive island and there's this enormous ape on the island, I think most people would call him a god. They have found out that this island is the home of King Kong. Now, this is also where this film has a big difference in the fact that if you went by the size of Kong from the 30s, this would be an exceedingly short film, because the whole film would be, grr, I'm King Kong, Godzilla.
Remember Bambi Meets Godzilla from the 1960s? It would probably be something similar to
the rest of the film would be Godzilla going, oh, what did I step in? And using buildings to scrape off the bottom of his foot. But now, in this film, Kong is truly kaiju-sized. So
Although still not as big as Godzilla.
Not as big as Godzilla,
quite.
No.
Slightly shorter.
Slightly shorter, but still pretty much like, holy crap, when it comes to the
not trying to take anything away from him.
The puny humans. Meanwhile, as it turns out, Godzilla, who was entombed in ice in the last film, we actually have some continuity. Shocking. He breaks out of his icy prison, destroys a nuclear sub, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, Kong and Godzilla, who are now, free out in the world, somehow they know each other exists, and they're just kind of honing in on each other to try and meet each other and kill each other. Mm-hmm. Now, the way they keep bringing this up in the American version, they keep having these cutaways to Bob Boxbody behind a news desk. I'm sorry, that's not nice, but my gosh, this guy was boring. Wait
a minute. What's his name isn't in this movie?
No, so we've got Chet Anchorman.
Alex Darcy isn't in this movie. Stop calling this gentleman Bob Boxbody.
We've got Chet Anchorman behind the desk explaining to us all the stuff that we've just seen.
Yeah, it's like watching a Who's Line newscast.
Yeah.
Because it's just all without Colin Mockery doing his dinosaur impression.
Well, the thing that really irked me about this part was, okay, so we've got the whole thing where Godzilla breaks out of this, actually, I got to go back a little further. I'm sorry, this is a total me thing, but we've got the whole.
Yeah, it's going to take us 8 hours to get through this show if you keep doing that.
You've got the whole thing where the submarine crashes. They release this dye in the water, which makes it look like the submarine peed itself. To show where they are so they can be rescued.
Right.
And we see a helicopter coming in to try and rescue them, and there's all these flashes coming from this glacier, and then the top of the glacier blows off, and there's Godzilla. Now, we've got two Caucasian actors in the helicopter. The one guy goes, "Look, Al, down there in the water." No crap, it's down there in the water, you idiot. I'm sorry. I realize I'm picking an enormous nit there, but oh my gosh, that line drove me insane. I don't even know why it drove me insane, but it did.
This is the first time hearing this one. Okay, go
It's
ahead.
just one. And then we get back to Chet Anchorman, who's all like, oh, the world is stunned to find out about giant monsters, blah, blah, blah.
Stay classy, Tokyo.
And I'm like, but Chet Anchorman, why are we so surprised that there are giant monsters? Because what the hell do you thought happened in the last two movies?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, they were aware of Godzilla. They weren't necessarily aware of King Kong.
They made it sound like this is the first. They were like, oh, the world is stunned to find out that these creatures exist. I'm like,
well, they thought
why?
they killed off the Godzilla. That's why. I think that has a lot to do with it. Can we get back to Faroe Island? I'm hungry.
All right. So anyway, what?
I want to get back to Faroe Island because I'm hungry.
It's not that kind of Pharaoh.
Oh, damn. I wanted some salad. Okay,
this is what happens when you have foodies doing podcasts that have nothing to do with food. So anyway.
It has everything to do with food. It just isn't food that you would notice because it's not the central theme, but they're...
Anyway, moving forward.
Never mind. Okay.
So after Kong does battle with a giant octopus, which was played for the most part by a real octopus, and we won't talk about what happened to the fates of one of the real octopus, but
it got et.
Pour one out for the octopus.
Give it up one time for octopus. Okay,
so
that probably just sent the sound meter nuts. Anyway.
We don't see how it happens that the gentleman from the pharmaceutical company get Kong on a raft and get him on a boat, and they're bringing him back to Japan.
See, here we go back to food again.
What?
King Kong on a raft. Is that like a large version of Adam and Eve on a raft?
Shut up.
This is what I get for stuff I can't do anything with. All right, go ahead.
Shut up.
I work and I slave, and this is the thanks I get.
I'm sorry that Kong's not on a snowboard, so you'd have more to talk about.
Ooh, that'd be scary.
So anyway, before they can make it back to Tokyo or make it back to Japan and put Kong on dry land, representatives from the Japanese Navy show up, and they have, proclamations from the Japanese government who are like, put that thing back where you found it. They are just completely like, you are not, that, King Kong has been determined to be a menace. No. I'm sorry.
I can't figure out for the life of me what would have brought them to that conclusion.
Shut the front door. A giant ape running around in your city is considered a menace? Really? But anyway, so eventually it all boils down to Godzilla and Kong have several mini fights. One of the mini fights is really awesome because, of course, one of the weapons that Godzilla has at his disposal is radioactive fire, which he blasts at Kong, and a little bit of Kong gets singed. And Kong's attitude is kind of like, yeah, pretty much. He's kind of like, he never used to be able to do that. And so we have a few mini fights. Then we have the big fight at the end of the film where you, honest to blog, almost expect Michael Buffer to show up and go, let's get ready to rumble!
Well, can we talk about one particular sequence?
What? Okay.
When they finally are able to, Kong is in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And rampaging, and they finally use the berries gas to knock him out.
Yeah.
So they decided...
He picked up a woman and climbed up to the top of the Japanese diet.
Yeah, the girlfriend of the hero. Yep. Anyway, they knock him out and try to figure out what they're going to do with them. So they decide, oh, hey, Godzilla's been spotted on Mount Fuji. Let's take him up there.
Let them fight.
Yeah.
Their attitude is that they hope that they'll fight and kill each other.
And then Kim will tell you, while we were watching this movie and watching the sequence where Godzilla is floating with his arms on his sides, floating on his arms and his sides with gigantic balloons holding him up, looking absolutely ridiculous.
The ugliest Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade.
And I was not helping by finding the theme from the Neverending Story, Bastian's Happy Flight on my Spotify and playing it because I was sitting there laughing my head off. And when they drop him, my God, okay, that sequence was hilarious. I don't know who came up with that. The special effects wizards really shot the boat on that one.
Well, Ichi Tsuburaya only had so much to work with. Give him a break.
But yeah, so anyway, they got them together on Mount Fuji for the big climactic battle.
Well, the thing that I love about the thing I love about that scene is that, like you said, Godzilla is on Mount Fuji, and for all the world, they keep showing these shots of Godzilla above, we're looking down at Godzilla, and for all the world, he looks like he's looking for his contact. the way that he's kind of just walking kind of hunched forward and looking down. I swear, it looks like he's like, nobody move! I lost the lens! Wait a minute. And they let Kong go from these balloons that they have him in, and he literally just falls out of the sky, slides down this mountain. That poor Kong's gonna be going, ow my butt, ow my butt, ow my butt, and slams into Godzilla. And now we have the big climactic fight at the end of the film. So we have fight. It's like Itchy and Scratchy. And they wind up tumbling into the ocean, which causes a tidal wave and massive collateral damage and so on and so forth.
That's not.
Well, no, there's what? There's a big tidal wave and there's a bunch of houses get wrecked and stuff. So anyway, we don't see Godzilla, but we do see Kong pop up out of the water, and he starts to swim back toward Faroe Island.
Assumably, his instinct are taking him back that way.
Yeah.
We don't really know that.
We don't know
It's not
that,
like they interviewed him while he was swimming away.
No.
But that's kind of
that
like
would
the
have been
impression
funny. What are
they're
you going to
leaving
do
him
now? I'm going to Disney World. That would have been great. As I said, we don't see Godzilla, which led to one of the longest movie myths in the history of movie myths.
That isn't a myth.
That isn't a myth and isn't true. The whole idea that certain people came up with the idea, and for some reason it took off, that there are two endings to this film, that allegedly nobody wanted to piss anybody off on either side of the world. So there was a Japanese ending where it was very obvious that Godzilla won, and there was an American ending where it was very obvious that King Kong won. This is nonsense. This is nonsense and crap and bull you know what. The end of the film is Kong swimming away, but you also hear Godzilla's roar as well. And Kong's as well. So the issue is, I know some people are like, well, we saw Kong, we didn't see Godzilla, that means Kong won. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, it does not at all, because Godzilla can breathe, or at least hold his breath for a very long time underwater.
Although, it is now confirmed that there are different endings for the films, the Japanese and the American versions, but they're just very minor adjustments, and it doesn't change the outcome.
No.
There's some sound footage, some stock footage inserted in a couple places in the American one. You have the silly Bob Boxbody, Chet Anchorman guy wishing Kong...
and strangely, we wish him well on his long journey back, blah, blah. Yeah, and then we get the roar, and we get Godzilla's roar, and we get the end of the movie. Although
the American version only has Kong.
Yeah.
So it's
the Japanese version does have both.
Yeah.
So there's a little, well, like all good legends, there's a little kernel of truth in them.
Exactly.
But the whole idea that one film has one monster completely triumphant, no. That is not accurate. So, and as we obviously know, because history, the Godzilla franchise went on from there. You know, it just kept growing and growing and growing. Ironically, so did Godzilla. Just kept getting taller and taller and taller. And we eventually wound up with the Universal Monsterverse, which I will be perfectly honest, I have been walking on air about since it started.
Yeah. It launched in 2015 with Godzilla, then 2017's Kong Skull Island, 2019's King of the Monsters, or Godzilla King of the Monsters, and now the Godzilla vs. Kong. This was due out over a year ago, and they pushed it back originally for special effects, and then they pushed it back further after COVID hit. So I think that was to the benefit of the film.
Oh, I definitely do too. I definitely do too.
The new film came out at the end of March, on the last Wednesday of March, and we saw it that weekend, and it has been the box office champ since then. It's been number one for 3 weekends at these downsized cinemas. And it did receive fairly good reviews. We don't want to give away too much about it, but let's give the basic stuff about the new one.
So the plot of Godzilla vs Kong, and thank you for putting the right person in, thank you for putting the right being at the front of the title this time, goes thusly. It has been 5 years since the Battle of Boston. 5 years since Godzilla killed King Ghidorah in Fenway Park and pretty much wrecked it all. And you know every Yankees fan was popping a beer at that. And Godzilla was established as the king of the monsters, or the Titans, as they're referred to in this world. And ever since then, from the sound of things, other than I think the odd sighting or so, Godzilla has laid pretty dormant, been pretty quiet, had a low profile. Kong is on his island, on Skull Island, but it's not quite the way it was before. Kong is, I don't think it's being unkind or inaccurate to call it, being held prisoner by the Monarch organization, which is this shadowy organization. What, the government's involved in a cover-up? How could that be? That Monarch has always been, or at least has been there for many decades, studying, the Titans and things like that. From the sound of it, from the way that some of the characters are talking, the storms that were constantly surrounding Skull Island that we saw back in Kong Skull Island, which you also have to remember was set during the closing days of Vietnam.
Right.
Those storms that were kind of a barrier around Skull Island have now moved so they're on Skull Island. From the sound of it, they've wiped out most of the indigenous population. And all right, I guess maybe saying Kong is a prisoner in the dome is okay. That, because I got a dirty look for that. Maybe that's not fair. I mean, but
they're keeping him alive. He's not a prisoner. I mean, he is sort of, but it's for his own good. It's like protective custody. Okay.
But at least he's being kept in a dome that's actually, it's got, a sky, and it's basically set up to be like the jungles that
it's the Truman Show for King Kong.
Or like the Hunger Games. One of the later Hunger Games movies where she threw the spear into the thing and it was a dome and all that.
Yeah.
So it's like that. He does have a little friend, though. He has a little friend in Gia, who was a little girl that was one of the children of one of the natives that were killed. She is a hearing impaired person, and she communicates with Kong via, sign language gestures and things like that. She's basically also the adopted child of Eileen Andrews, who is a scientist and pretty much the world, I guess it wouldn't be unfair to call her the world's expert on King Kong.
She's taking care of him, yeah.
Yeah, she's keeping him safe and protected from people that would want to either cut him open to see how he ticks or use him as a weapon, either way.
Well, there's more to it than that. The theory is that the Titans can sense each other.
Right.
And she's worried that Godzilla, who is known to still be out there, would instantly sense Kong and come after him.
Right. To either kill him or beat him into submission, we don't know. Either way, it would end up pretty badly for one or both of the Titans and for anybody in the immediate area. In Pensacola, Florida, a company called Apex Cybernetics is doing their own research, and one of the people that works there, a gentleman named Bernie Hayes, who is also a podcaster like us, but Jose...
No, not like us. We're not conspiracy hosts.
He has a podcast. That's where the similarities end. Bernie is a conspiracy theory podcast person. And unlike some other people who host conspiracy theory podcasts, he actually believes in his. And he's,
ouch.
Not naming names. He's pretty much one step away from running around with a tin hat on his head. But the problem is, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that they're really not out to get you.
Yeah, he's Woody Harrelson from 2012. If you've seen that movie, you'll understand. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
And as they do say, a stopped clock is right twice a day. So even though this guy is all conspiracy crazy talk and all that, it may not be all talk and it may not be all that crazy either. Something is going on at Apex. Something is going on. They are building something, and whatever said something is causes Godzilla to show up in Florida and run very much amok because Florida doesn't have enough stuff to deal with. People immediately, and I mean immediately, turn on Godzilla because they had this whole attitude before of, oh, he saved us, blah, 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 and all this. And now people are like, oh, he was our savior. Why is he attacking us, blah, blah, blah. They instantly refer to him as the enemy. Everybody else but me. Because it's me.
No, he has a solid friend in Florida.
He does. And that would be Madison Russell.
Who we met in Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Mm-hmm. And there's no way she's 5 years older. Anyway. Well,
the CPO of Apex, of the Apex company, Walter Simmons, is trying to find out about a power source in something called Hollow Earth. Now, for those of you who have never heard of this theory, you totally can't see me, but until this movie, I never heard of it, and I was totally raising my hand. Apparently, this whole theory, this Hollow Earth thing is like a legit theory that some really smart people have. The whole idea that there's another Earth inside our Earth, like with a whole power source and all this other stuff. And Mr. Simmons goes to a scientist named Nathan Lind, who at one point worked for Monarch, to see about trying to find out if this whole Hollow Earth thing is legit, and can they find power there to fight against Godzilla, because they don't know why Godzilla's suddenly shown up and run amok. Sure they don't. Anybody who buys that... Yeah. Okay, anybody who buys that, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn for really cheap. The issue is that the theory that Eileen had about Kong, yeah, that theory isn't wrong. Because now Kong and Godzilla know each other exists. And a battle ensues between them to decide who is the real king of the monsters.
We gonna stop it there?
Yeah, I think so.
Alexander Skarsgård is on board as Dr. Nathan Lind this time. Millie Bobby Brown is back as Madison Russell, with her father, played by Kyle Chandler, in a very brief appearance. Mm-hmm. Rebecca Hall, Dr. Eileen Andrews, Brian Tyree Henry, who always seems to land these really annoying characters. He's a wonderful actor, but he gets these most annoying, grating characters. He is the conspiracy guy, Bernie Hayes. Julian Dennison as Madison's friend, Josh Valentine. Shun Aguri as Ren Sarazawa. Isa Gonzalez as Maya Simmons. And Demian Bashir as Walter Simmons. Plus Katie Hoddle is the young orphan who has a little secret with Kong herself. Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I gotta be honest, when it comes to Brian Tyree Henry's Bernie Hayes, I didn't have as big a problem with him as you did.
Oh, he's not as bad as the conspiracy guy from the second Transformers movie. He drove me up the wall.
Well, my issue with Bernie is he's a person that believes in these conspiracies, mm-hmm. but he's also a person that wants to do something about the conspiracies.
I do want to mention this movie was directed by Adam Wingard, who is like the darling of the horror indie circuit for some of the stuff he's done, including an excellent film we both love called A Horrible Way to Die. Mm-hmm. There was supposed to be an appearance from Zhang Ziyi, who would have reprised her character from the second film, but it was not actually used in the film.
Yeah, which I know pissed you off.
Oh, well, I don't mind. I miss seeing her, but yeah. We both think, I mean, in all honesty, we don't want to get into the plot line for those of you who haven't seen it, and you're going to hear it in a little bit. Anyway, a little bit of it. But, from something else we got coming up. But, I'm really happy with what they did here because I was not a huge fan of King of the Monsters. It wasn't as good as the first Godzilla or Skull Island. And, it was good, but again, and this was my complaint about both of the first two Godzilla films, it was too dark to see most of the action between the kaiju. Particularly in Godzilla and between the Mudos and Godzilla, Gojira, more properly. And the battle for Boston was so crowded with, like, smoke and rain and everything else, you really didn't see any of it. And I was pissed. I was pissed like you were pissed about Cloverfield.
Yeah.
So
I didn't have that problem.
This was great
I'm
because
sorry.
we got to see them in all their glory, not once, but several times.
Lots of times.
Along with some other stuff and a big surprise at the end.
Yeah. I have to admit, this movie made me cheer. It made me gasp. It made me screech a couple of times.
It made me wish that we could have seen it on the big screen, which we did not do.
It made me really wish I could.
We are not going back to the theaters for a good 6
and
months
I have to be
until
honest,
everything settles down.
And I have to be honest, and pardon the eye rolls that might happen out there from me bringing this up. It made me cry.
Brother.
It did. It made me cry. And I know that some people are going to be like, oh, you're such a marshmallow. And maybe I am, but I think once you see it, you might understand why. And it wasn't like a build up to crying. It was a just immediately burst into tears crying. Mm-hmm. And it's just me. It's a me thing. And
it's
I admit
a love that you have for the characters.
Yeah.
And always has been.
Yeah. I do want to bring up one thing though, and I don't think this is a spoiler. For one thing, this scene's been all over the internet. Mm-hmm. There's a scene towards the end where there's the big climactic, one of many, battles between...
Well, no, there can't be one of many big climactic battles. There's going to be one...
This is the big smackdown. There's been skirmishes, but this is the big fight at the end.
Okay. There's
one point where Godzilla, I don't know how else to put it, but say it like it is, smiles. Oh my gosh, don't ever do that again!
Yeah, she's like, he's smiling!
I was like, oh my gosh, is he smiling? I think I just pissed myself. Because that was...
Oh, TMI, thank you.
No, it was just like, that's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I mean, maybe it was just pulling his teeth, his lips back in a form of aggression or something, but it definitely came off like he was gloating. And it was like, I think I'm traumatized. But I thought it was terrific. I thought it was... Now, you get the same issues that a lot of critics have had with these kind of films over the years. Oh, blah, 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 human characters, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'm going to come right out and say it. I don't give a flying Donald Duck about the human characters. I'm there for the kaiju. And I admit it, and I don't care. And this movie gave me kaiju, and I was happy. The end.
Yeah. It was a good film, and
yes.
It was a good... If they do into the MonsterVerse, which I don't think they're going to do.
I don't think they're going to.
Everybody has got a hashtag... continue the MonsterVerse out there and on Twitter and so on.
They're ending this chapter. They should do like the Marbleverse and have like phase.
Yeah, I agree.
1, 2, 3.
Because number one, Mothra got the shaft in King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
Number one.
There were other Titans still left alive at the end of that film.
Yeah, there were. So there's other possibilities of films. But it'll depend because it depends on whether or not Toho wants to license. Because if you remember... Theoretically, this is separate from Toho, even though they're co-producers.
Right. Because
Toho did what they said they would not do during the Legendary series and went ahead and rebooted Godzilla with Shin Godzilla in 2016. Yep. And I'm like, that movie sucked eggs. And I know the critics loved it because it's a a satire based on the Japanese government, and you see Godzilla for 12 minutes in the entire film.
I walked out of that film
it was
feeling
terrible.
like my soul
and,
got scraped out.
Yeah,
it was just
these are much better, and I think they would be best to go with this and roll with it.
Yeah.
Although, as most people say, and actually as they've shown in a video game, I think now, the Toho Godzilla and the Legendary Godzilla are not the same, and Legendary's is freaking huge compared to Toho's.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, it's available on HBO Max for another week or two, and then it'll be off for, I think, 90 days until it comes back but it is still in the theaters, and if you feel safe, by all means, see it on a big screen because it is amazing. The effects and stuff are fantastic.
Just jumping back for a second to Shin Godzilla.
Must we?
Well, no, I just want to say something about Shin Godzilla. That I feel like that film was made by the Japanese for the Japanese.
Yes, it was.
It's going to resonate more deeply with the Japanese audience, and that's fine. That makes perfect sense. And the fact that American audiences just didn't have that same feeling, that's not a slag on the film.
Right. Well, we didn't like the film, though.
Yeah, it didn't do anything for us.
It didn't do anything for anybody in that theater.
No,
everybody
true.
left grumbling.
Or very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have something we haven't had for years right now.
Email. We get email. We get your email every day. Here's your mail today.
Yay!
We have email from our Chris. Our Chris, welcome back.
Hi, Chris.
As he puts in his letter, and this is all about the film. We will edit spoilers where necessary. John Deere, TC, and Kim. That's cute. I saw
John.
John Deere.
I know.
Well, I figure you're not a country girl.
No, I know that.
You think the earth falls off after Connecticut, so, I'm just saying.
He's lying. I've never said that. He's a lying liar who lies.
I saw Kong Skull Island 2 Journey to the Center of the Earth with special appearance by Godzilla in IMAX on opening night. I enjoyed it, but I do have some complaints and criticisms, the chief of which you can probably guess from my sarcastic retitling of the film in question. Godzilla seems like he's an afterthought in this movie, and that is as frustrating as can be. The movie feels like there are missing scenes, like the studio demanded extensive cuts to get the movie down to an hour-and-a-half runtime. Like, who is character and why are they so bent on what they're doing? A little more info on Godzilla and Kong's ancient rivalry seems to be missing. How the heck did they get Kong off the island? That's a good question. They didn't show that at all.
No, they didn't show that. They didn't show it in the first movie either. I mentioned that.
Another complaint I have is that the female leads, both Millie Bobby Brown and Rebecca Hall, are so insufferably mean to their sidekicks that I was actively rooting against them. Well, Rebecca Hall's sidekick is kind of a douchebag at the beginning, and Julian Dennison is there for comic relief. So, that's the whole point. He's there. I almost didn't care which monster won as long as these two were casualties. Calling Skarsgård's character a coward because he's visibly nervous around a gorilla the size of a building. Really? And Millie Bobby Brown just treats Julian Dennison like dog excrement, keeping it relatively clean for your listeners. And these are supposed to be our protagonists? Godzilla and Kong are the real protagonists of this movie, and it delivers in the fight scenes, mostly.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I'm just going through and re-editing, Chris, I'm sorry. One thing that is obvious to me is that Godzilla was going easy on Kong. My fan theory, and it would be nice to have if the human characters would speculate about this, is that Godzilla wasn't trying to kill Kong as much as force him to submit, like Ghidorah did to Rodan in the previous film.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah. It would explain why Godzilla didn't, blah, blah, blah. And, I'd still give it a high grade because of who won the fight. I just wish there was more to do in the film for Godzilla. So, thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Chris.
I had to edit up. I don't want to give spoilers away, although most people have seen it by this point.
We're assuming everybody with taste has seen this movie, but
and thank you for writing. It was so great to hear from you.
It was so good to hear from you.
Yeah, he has some valid points. He has some valid points. there's too much. The one thing that bugs me about this movie, as well as King of the Monsters, there's not enough kaiju. There's too much human and not enough kaiju. And while I know that that's a staple of the Toho series, those characters are at least interesting. They take time to develop them. We still really don't know much about the background of Millie Bobby Brown's character.
We found out a lot in the
we
previous
did,
film.
but why is she here now? And I mean, 5 years? Really? It's been 2 years, 3 years since they made that film. She doesn't look like she's aged 5 years. Mm-hmm. She'd be, a couple years older.
And hold up. And Anakin was a little tiny kid in Phantom Menace, and by Attack of the Clones, he's Hayden Christensen.
He was almost 10
and
years.
Natalie Portman looks exactly the same.
That's a science fiction thing. All on different planets. It's not on Earth. I agree. Julian Dennison is one of the most talented young character actors out there. He's done some really good stuff. Loved him in Deadpool too. He was good there, and he was also the star of Hunt for the Wildebeest. Wilder People. Wilder People. Sorry, I always do that. Here he's just annoying, but it's not in a bad way. It's like your best friend nagging you. We got to do this. We got to do that. But the one thing that never was explained to me, and I said this when we were done watching the film, who is this kid and where did he come from? Because they're in Pensacola, Florida, and he's walking around with this clearly New Zealand accent. No explanation that his family moved from New Zealand. No explanation from this or that or the other thing. Barely mention of his family. He's borrowed his brother's vehicle. But no information of how he got where he is. And it would have been nice to know how he got there, number one, and number two, how the two of them met up and become friends. Because they're total opposites.
That's how fanfic works. I don't know.
It just seems kind of weird.
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, that was one plot point that really bugged me.
Maybe we'll get some, hidden scenes or, deleted scenes or whatever.
And if you're going to go into this film and you're going to be a sarcastic person, then you're probably prepared. You'll have plenty of, if you're a Stranger Things fan, you'll have plenty of things popping into your head that Eleven would be doing that, Millie Bobby's character here is not doing.
Right.
Because she's a lot more powerful. There's just, I don't watch Stranger Things, and I was making Stranger Things jokes about going to the Upside Down when they were down in the Hollow Earth thing and all that stuff. And it was like, because that's basically what it was. A lot of the cool stuff really happens in that segment too. Yeah. There's some really frightening crap in there and some really fun crap in there.
I think that's pretty much all we have to say.
Are you thinking that this was a good... Was this better than the other two or the other three?
I think it was better.
They end on a high note if they do end.
I think it was a strong continuation of the Monsterverse, which I don't want to end.
No, I don't either.
Unlike the other Dark Universe, which never really kept trying to start and kept falling over.
They keep blowing it every time.
Yep, they do.
I think that it's safe to say at this point that if nothing else, we will get at least a Mothra film because
I hope so.
There was talk back when Skull Island was out that Mothra would be the third film in the sequel, and then they rushed ahead with King of the Monsters, and it showed in the script. So there is still a partially done Mothra treatment out there. I do think we're going to get a Mothra film at some point, and then another versus Godzilla versus Mothra.
I want to see a Rodan film because I love the original Rodan. I think it has one of the most tragic endings of a kaiju film.
Rodan is a good film, but you're not going to do the same thing that you did in the kaiju.
No, it's not, because this Rodan is a bastard. I'm sorry, he is. Or she is. We never really established.
No, we didn't.
But I loved it, and I hope it continues somehow.
I think they will. Next week on Subject Cinema, and we will be back next Sunday.
Yes, we will.
We are going to be talking about a film that we actually saw 2 years ago now, that we were going to talk about originally we were going to move some of the stuff to Patreon, which we no longer do. We just decided to get rid of it. But it's a film that we had wanted to see for the longest time. We had the opportunity to see it on the big screen at the Museum of Fine Arts a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. It's a film that you either love or you hate.
Yeah.
And it is derided as silly if you just watch the trailer, and that's easy to understand.
Yeah.
Because that is all we had seen up to that point.
Yep. And we derided it when we just saw the trailer.
The trailer's hilarious. And yeah, I knew it was coming from a director that I've always liked, John Boorman, and we thought it would be fun to talk about it here because we've never reviewed it. We've never talked about that visit, and we keep threatening to. Mm-hmm. Next week, we will actually tackle it. 1975's Zardoz, starring Sean Connery.
Yep.
And you'll want to be here for that. Other stuff is continuing to change and grow. We are working on getting things back into full non-pandemic mode, although we'll still be in pandemic mode for the next 6 months or so.
Yep.
Personally, we will be able to start doing stuff. I have a bunch. We're going to be getting the shows back in order. Subject Cinema will be back on a weekly basis starting today. Cross your fingers. If not, I will post something. Tuesday Digidex, the last 2 weeks, has not been appearing because there's nothing coming out on DVD. It will be around if it can be. Of course, 3 Minute Weekend has never had a shortage since they started putting a few films back in theaters. So we will keep that going on Fridays. Tuesday Digidex will depend on what's coming out and streaming and DVD. Also, Stream Month disappeared this month because I just didn't have the time to get it done, and I'm really feeling bad about that, but it will be back at the beginning of May. As I said before, Catastrophe Vortex is going to be merged into our stuff, and you are giving Platinum Rose Garden a little kind of hiatus until you figure out what you're doing.
What I figured out
but Ring Around the Rosie should have been back, but we haven't had time to get it back.
No, it needs to come back, and
it should be in the next week or so. Yeah. She will get it back up and running. Mm-hmm.
We do have some other stuff on the internet that hopefully you will check out.
Mm-hmm.
You can go back and listen to our older podcasts.
All of our older stuff is there, although Catastrophe Vortex and Mirrorball Mayhem will both disappear at the end of this month. So if you've not heard either one of those shows, go check them out. Catastrophe Vortex will be merged into the Subject Cinema channel. But the Mirrorball Mayhem is going away. So if you've missed our 9 seasons of Dancing with the Stars coverage, catch it now while you can.
I have another channel of my own on YouTube called Platinum Rose RolePlay, which is some voice acting work that I've done. All of the stuff has been written by me.
She's done some great stuff.
Performed
really
by me,
good
but
stuff.
Edited by him.
I do the effects and that production. She does the stories and tells me what she wants it to sound like, and it's really awesome.
Oh, thank you.
We have 2 other longer projects out there that are part of our, what the heck were we calling it?
Ear Imagination.
Ear Imagination Theater. Our original Cloverfield tribute, Manhattan Hammerdown, and our 80th anniversary or 70th anniversary tribute to War of the Worlds. We'll get back into doing that eventually. I don't know when. We had hoped to do 4 productions a year. I don't know whether we're going to be able to do that this year, but hopefully we'll aim for 2022 to get it back really going, and hopefully we'll have something for this Halloween too. Mm-hmm. We have some other stuff in the pipeline. You can check my stuff out every day at TKR Video Central on YouTube. I have been doing music video stuff, about music, about, pop culture, mostly my vinyl collection and stuff. I'd love to have you come over, love to have you subscribe. That's where my focus has been since the pandemic started, and it continues to be. I just have a couple of things up about Record Store Day and a few other things recently. And I hope that you'll check that out. We also have a few other things coming in the near future, including the return of Front Row 5 and 10, which we're aiming for this summer, and also a new show, tentatively titled The Popcorn and Roses Show, which will be on our YouTube channel. So you'll want to check that out, and hopefully there'll be big announcements and falderall and hoopla when all this stuff goes off, and all of it should be ready in time for the second week of June, which we will be celebrating 15 freaking years of doing this show. I still can't believe that.
If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at PlatinumRosella@twitter.com.
I am at eCinemaOne on Twitter, and the music stuff is at TKR Online. I'm also at eCinemaBoston, but I do most of my stuff at eCinemaOne. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Facebook is still Popcorn and Roses.
Yep.
We'd love to hear from you. Our address is subjectcinema@PNRNetworks.com. And we hope you'll continue to listen, spread the word, and subscribe to us on Libsyn or your favorite podcasting channel, podcast listener, except Spotify. We're not there yet. I'm working on it.
And on that note,
La! For Subject Cinema, I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
May your popcorn always be buttered.
And may your roses always be in bloom.
TTFN.
Bye now.
You have been listening to Subject Cinema with hosts T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown. Subject Cinema is produced by PNRNetworks, Boston, Massachusetts, which is solely responsible for its content. Subject Cinema is copyright 2020 by PNRNetworks under a Creative Commons license. Check out a new episode of Subject Cinema every weekend. Until next time, this is Bob Taylor for Subject Cinema, and we'll see you at the movies.
Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
15 years. Blowing the doors off the competition. Podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com.